hold
Okay.
on.
Let's go.
I'm assuming those are two of yours.
Well, yeah.
All right, so let me do this. Seaver and Hernandez. Let's do it this way. All right. I have Tom Seaver as well somewhere in here. This one, my list is a little different. I do not have Keith Hernandez.
Okay.
I went with Gary Carter. So I'll give you my two of mine.
Okay.
I'll let you go with the third one of yours.
I'm going to have to go with David Wright.
Yeah.
He's everything I always wanted a player to be.
He's Mr. Met.
Some things didn't pan out because of the injuries. There was always Met fans who always detracted on his clutch.
And they're idiots.
They're idiots.
He's Mr. Met.
He's Mr. Met.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
He's everything we wanted him to be. Sometimes life just throws you something. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
David was everything. He was the hardest worker.
What more could you want?
Homegrown, brilliant talent, wonderful human being, David Wright.
Yeah. I don't know what more you could want from him. So.
No.
All right, fourth one. Who do you have?
I'm going to say Gary Carter, too. And again, these aren't, and the only reason I'm not going to put DeGrom is because I don't want to put two pitchers. But I wanted to make it, where it's a little more evened out. Gary was part of that team.
Yep.
Gary was such a vital, revitalizing presence. He's iconic. He's a Hall of Famer. He passed away. I'm going to put Gary up there. Yep. Again, if I was going to put a non-position player, it would be Jacob DeGrom.
I did put DeGrom. That's who. That's why I put.
Listen, it's literally that close.
Yeah.
It's literally, the thing is with Carter, I guess the tiebreaker might have been the childhood in the 86.
Yeah. Right.
The 86 thing in the childhood.
Yeah.
Because he was dead smack in the middle of my most formidable years, which was, between the ages of 10 and 13 or 14, where everything always is so amplified. Everything that's wonderful happens to you is so amplified in those years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so without question, not without question, but I'm going to go with Gary.
Yeah. I think Gary Carter has to be on there. I think David Wright has to be on there. Seaver has to be on there. That fourth person, I've seen people put Strawberry on there. I've seen people put Piazza on there. I can't take Piazza over Gary Carter. I just can't for all the reasons we've already talked about. I just
exactly. Exactly. And I for sentimental reasons I get Darryl, but if you break it down to a more analytical, Darryl, Darryl left bitter.
Mm-hmm.
And the substance abuse thing is one thing.
Yeah.
My favorite football player of all time was one of the worst substance abusers.
Dexter Manley?
Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor has had probably the worst personal life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just drugs. It was other things. Drugs happen. I mean, it's a sickness.
Especially in that time period too. I mean, that was.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
But one thing, Lawrence Taylor, no matter what, was just an unapologetic New York Giant.
Yeah.
And maybe we could do a Giants show.
Oh yeah, we will.
Day. I would love to do a Giants show with you, brother. And but the thing is, I don't know how LT performed at the thing he did. Darryl's personal life stunted his career as a Met, and Darryl will tell you that. And Darryl's still a wonderful Met to watch play. But there was also a bitterness and immaturity.
Definitely.
And again, so it doesn't take away my love and affection for him, but it does take him a little bit off of that.
Yeah.
That puts him maybe on a slightly lower tier.
Yeah.
As a player, not as a person. He's done a wonderful job turning his life around.
Yeah, and put him. He was in the mix, but for me, it was definitely Carter, Wright, and Seaver. I didn't even have to think about the fourth one. I don't even remember who I had on here. I actually considered some of those older Mets that just were, like Buddy Harrelson, even though he didn't have the numbers or anything, and Kuzman, I say it right. Jerry Kuzman was great. I mean, if it wasn't for Tom Seaver, he had a great career.
They're retiring his number this year too.
Yeah, I saw that. So I consider players like that. And I don't know if
Kuzman is definitely an all-time great Met.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without question.
Absolutely.
And Kuzman pitched for 20 years too. I mean,
right.
Kuzman's a borderline Hall of Famer, I think.
I think he should be.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it.
Yeah, I think he should be in.
I could see it. Kuzman was a fantastic pitcher.
Fantastic. I went with DeGrom, and hopefully injuries don't derail his, career. But he's a special talent that we don't see very often. He reminds me of is I'm hoping he doesn't have the same fate as like Tim Lincecum, who had that great start to his career, and so I'm hoping. Actually another Met, Johan Santana.
He came very close. I also made a list of starting pitchers.
Yeah.
And even guys, I guess I'd have to throw in the pen. And Johan's name was one of the first to come up.
Yeah.
We came up short in 07 and 08
yeah.
Through no fault of Johan's.
Yeah.
Johan tried to drag us into the postseason those years. He was a fantastic pitcher with the Mets, albeit relatively short-lived.
Yeah.
But Johan came, and Johan tried to earn every dollar he was paid with the Mets, and he was a wonderful athlete. He could hit, he could field. He was a lights-out pitcher. Just did a tremendous job for us. Nothing but respect and love for Johan. So I agree with him up there.
DeGrom stays healthy and does bad when he plays
the
Cubs.
Because I want him to have at least another few good years.
Yeah.
I am of the belief that if DeGrom's career ended today, he's in the Hall of Fame.
Very well could
and
be.
And he's barely got like 100 wins.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think with the Hall of Fame voting, they need to take it out of the sports writers' hands. There's just it needs to come from players and people within the game of baseball. It's just and Hall of Fame players.
Because the writers, it's become just too nepotistic and
absolutely
vindictive. Exactly.
And I don't
100%.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic about how we're going to handle, all the, the steroid stuff and things like that. And some of it's just so stupid, like with Clemens particularly, and Bonds. Like all you have to do is admit that you did it. And Sammy, everybody loves Andy Pettit.
Right.
Right. All you have to do is come out and say, especially the era in which they played. Okay, it's not like they were the only people doing it. Everybody knows people were doing it.
Well, and see what baseball did was it used them to get fans back, and they knew they were doing steroids. It's very similar to what happened to Pete Rose. Mm-hmm. People knew Pete Rose was a compulsive gambler from the early 70s, but he was putting asses in the seats, and no one said anything. Yeah. So the hypocrisy, where I don't like the steroids, the hypocrisy is pretty bad because they knew these guys were using when they were exalting them.
Yeah.
And then when it became an issue, they just threw them under the bus.
Absolutely.
And it's like you said, they could have done something way different.
First of all, it wasn't even illegal.
The players didn't help by lying to Congress, and they hurt themselves too. Yeah, it's like you said, if they would have come clean, they would have been judged much differently.
Just think about what they could have done for the game by coming clean to that congressional hearing. It's like none of it makes sense to me. And up until a certain point, it wasn't illegal. It wasn't even illegal.
It wasn't.
It was frowned upon, but but
it wasn't illegal.
No.
And if they would have come clean in that congressional hearing, all the public empathy would have been toward the players.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't get the whole thing. So.
No, but
I hate Barry Bonds. I hate Roger Clemens. And, I don't think they should get in just because they're so stubborn. Clemens is just such a prick, and Barry Bonds is Barry Bonds. He's never been a likable guy.
No.
But Barry Bonds was a first ballot Hall of Famer before any of that happened.
Before
he even went to San Francisco, he was a 5-tool player that was the best player in baseball.
He was.
And
he absolutely
he didn't need to, but your cranium doesn't grow.
No, it doesn't.
So anyway,
it doesn't grow. And again, you know, a lot of times you hear this word, it's optics, you know, and the optics were bad, and there wasn't a tremendous amount of sympathy because of the amount of money these guys make and stuff. And then, you know, the lies, the evasiveness, they lost that trial in the court of public opinion. Absolutely. And they didn't have to. That you just brought that up. And I think that it hurt them. It's a tough thing, but they were exploited, and it's hard to say.
Question.
Well, guys made $200 million. I'd like to be exploited that way, but you know, that's not everything.
No.
And you know, money is money, but your legacy. And listen, they were all hard workers. Mm-hmm. Palmeiro, McGuire. It wasn't like they didn't work hard.
Right.
And they were, you know, listen. When you're an athlete, you really are just an entertainer.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, your job is to put the most entertaining product on the field, and a lot of that comes with winning and the factor, the factor, and so there's a lot of pressure. I do empathize with them on that level. I do
too. I just don't understand why you don't come clean, and I think we got to figure out, like, the sports writers are just not going to put them in. You know, they're just not going. They're not going to put Clemens or Bonds in. They're just not going to do it. You know,
I've had this playful argument with my friend. He thinks one day they will. I say they're not. They're not getting it
unless they change how they're doing it. You know, Sammy Sosa's not in the Hall of Fame. It's just freaking ridiculous.
It's 600 home runs.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know, you have Barry Bonds, who arguably is one of the top 5 players in the history of baseball, not in the Hall of Fame because of his bullshit. So
because of the shit. And but like you said, they could have done. It's a tough thing, but they had a lot of ammunition to use, and you know, maybe it was lawyers, maybe it was the union, maybe it was their own ego. Who knows? Maybe it was just being programmed to kind of, you know, deny. Right? You know, a lot of times you see that. You know, you see it, and even in again, not to get into it, in other aspects of our life, whether it be police or law enforcement or politics, people make mistakes. People do things. They make decisions that they think are the good thing at the time. They think that's what's wanted. And it's like I said, people understand that. But lying's a different story.
Yeah, agreed.
When you get caught lying, you kind of lose whatever empathy people are going to have for you.
Good. Just come clean. Come clean. Yeah, and everybody loves Andy Pettitte.
Pete Rose admits that. Pete Rose said, I should have admitted it.
Yeah, right.
I should have admitted it.
Yeah.
I didn't bet against my team.
Right.
I should have admitted it.
Yeah.
And this thing, it dragged on, and then, you know, and then Bud Selig had his own agenda, and here we are 35 years later still talking about.
It's ridiculous.
We start talking about it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Really this might be the shortest segment.